Hey guys, and welcome back to the Roundhouse, IGN's dedicated show to analysing the action films of the 80s and 90s. Tristan Ogilvie here, joined once again by a man who shares my love for oiling up and flexing, in private mostly, Luke Riley.
Hey.
Luke, what are we going to analyse today?
Today we have...
I'm not going to look behind me.
We have decided upon Point Break.
Yes,
the 1991
original,
not
Point Break. Not the upcoming reboot.
Not the upcoming reboot, but it was the upcoming, well, I feel like it was the upcoming reboot that prompted you to suggest it.
Yes, it was.
It was.
It was.
Point Break. I read his mind there.
Yeah. Point Break, for our younger viewers, I suppose, is probably better known as Fast and the Furious, the early years. But it is definitely the greatest action surfing film ever. I mean, it just blows Surf Ninjas and Carrot Top's chairman of the board way out of the water. Before we get into it, Luke, hit me with some Point Break facts.
Point Break pointers.
Nice.
Directed by Catherine Bigelow, who hasn't directed a great deal of films,
no.
but most recently, of course, directed The Hurt Locker and Zero
Oscar
Dark 30.
winning.
Oscar
Yes.
winning. Picked up an Oscar for The Hurt Locker. Also directed Zero Dark 30, which I quite enjoyed. Starring Patrick Swayze, who sadly has left us. Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey and Laurie Petty. Opened July, as we mentioned, opened July 12, 1991 in the US, 1 week after Terminator 2.
Wow.
And it was trounced
What a
by
shock.
Terminator 2 and several other films at the time. Although, it actually did quite well at the box office and did even better on home video, back when there was a home video
I remember that.
landscape.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
let's find out what it was all about then.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Do it.
Okay, the short burst where we get the one sentence pitch about, or the gist of what the film is. So for people who have perhaps been living under a pebble on Bell's Beach, what is Point Break all about?
All right. The way I've summed it up. Keanu Reeves accidentally catches serial bank robbers by learning how to surf.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super helpful too if you haven't watched it, because anyone who picks up the VHS box sees that it's starring a character called Johnny Utah. They might think it's maybe about a male stripper or maybe about a Mormon action hero.
Yep.
But it's not. It's about what he just said. Okay, top 3 moments of Point Break 1991 original.
How do you choose, Tristan?
Well, I mean, let's get the obvious one out of the way first, I think. I don't know if this was among your top 3, but certainly one of the most iconic moments from the film, parodied in Hot Fuzz quite famously.
I know where he's going.
By Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It's, of course, the bit where Johnny Utah has the chance to shoot Patrick Swayze's Bodie, but he can't do it.
Can't do it.
Because he respects him so much.
Can't pull the trigger.
And he ends up just firing in agony into the sky with a broken heart and also a broken knee. I think that's probably where most of the agony comes from. But it's not just that moment that I love so much, it's the kind of build up to that moment, because what precedes that moment is this epic sort of on-foot chase.
Yeah, the foot chase is incredible.
Yeah, and they start with a fist fight in a service station that's on fire.
It's on fire,
and then the chase begins, and it's kind of like kids on bikes swerving in front of them and trucks pulling up, and then they go through a house and housewives throw clothes at them and attack them with brooms. It stops short of them, 2 guys carrying a window pane or something. But
there's no pile of watermelons.
That's right.
I'm surprised that wasn't in the car chase before the foot chase.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And then, sort of right near the end of the chase, Patrick Swayze actually throws a dog at Keanu Reeves' face. So that entire sequence, I think, is kind of my number one.
That's definitely my number one.
Right.
I think that whole sequence.
Number 2, I've got to say the heist towards the end of the film, when they've sort of captured Keanu, they've got his girlfriend sort of held to ransom. He's forced into performing a heist with the robbers. They only have enough dead president masks for...
Sorry, Johnny. Looks like you don't get to be president.
So Keanu has to go in with his identity fully on display for the CCTV cameras. Bodhi gets really reckless and decides to attack the vault, which they don't normally do.
Why are we going to the vault? We never go to the vault!
It sort of culminates in Patrick Swayze actually shooting a sort of plainclothes cop. He actually shoots him with the gun that seems to be the one that the Joker pulls out of his pants in Tim Burton's Batman movie.
It's a really long gun.
It's a massive gun. But he shoots the guy, and that's kind of like when he goes beyond the point of no return for his character. And so that's my second favourite moment. And then the last moment, it would be remiss, given where we're from in the world, I have to mention the fact that at the end of the film, they go to Bells Beach in Torquay, Victoria, Australia, because earlier on it's alluded to by Patrick Swayze that there's a 50-year storm coming.
And when it hits Bells Beach, it'll turn into the biggest surf this planet has ever seen, and I will be there.
But it's quite obviously not Bells Beach.
Not at all, no.
The trees are these kind of spruce.
There's like cliffs and...
there's cliffs. The beach has rocks on it. There's no sand. I mean, it was a real kick to the balls of our tourism industry, I think. And that's the other thing. The cops are like doing these woeful Australian accents.
Cops' accents.
What do you think you're doing? You let him go!
And they're carrying Uzis, which is not really standard issue in this part of the world. But then it's kind of counterbalanced by the fact that Peter Phelps, who's a legit Australian actor, is there, and he like goes full on Australian. Because Keanu asks him, if people are surfing there, and he's like,
"It's gonna be fucking crazy, man! Death on a stick out there, mate!"
which is definitely, I think, it evens out. It does feel Australian in that regard.
They at least put the number. They had a number plate, like an Australian number plate, on the car.
Now, Luke, one of your moments crosses over with mine, but have you got any other top moments?
Yes, the foot chase is definitely my top moment. That whole sequence that goes from car chase to foot chase is brilliant. One of my other favourite moments is post that last heist. They're on the plane, the second skydive where Johnny jumps out of the plane without a parachute.
Without a parachute, just his giant Joker gun.
Just his giant Joker gun that he's stolen from the plane, and chases him down, and grabs him, and there's this big moment where it's like, you got to pull it, man. And he's like, no, you got to drop the gun, and you go, you pull it. No, you pull it. There's something about that just makes me laugh.
Pull it right now!
My other favourite moment is the classic stupid chief moment, which I think any good buddy cop movie,
of course,
like
it's part of the formula,
requires. Sometimes you get away with that. The classic stupid chief moment where the character, the FBI chief, who I can't remember his character's name, but it's played by John C. McGinley.
Who's awesome.
He's amazing, he's like just ripping shreds of Pappas, of Gary Busey. And then Gary Busey gets in his face.
I was in this bureau when you were still popping zits on your funny face and jacking off to the lingerie section of the Sears catalog.
Yeah, then John C. McGinley turns around to him and, he says to him like...
yeah? Why don't you astonish me, shitface?
And then he does just that by punching him in the face. And he does a classic spin and fall on the camera. And then, that's perfect, I think.
Respect for my elders. God. Plain and simple.
One more thing.
Yeah.
There's this weird, sort of 1 minute section of this film, and I don't know if Patrick Swayze demanded it, but all of a sudden it's kind of like they're giving shout-outs to his other films. Because Keanu walks up on the beach and sees Patrick Swayze surfing, and then the love interest is like,
"You look like you saw a ghost."
And then, seconds later, he's talking to Gary Busey about he's been following Patrick Swayze, and he's like,
"You see his lunch at Patrick's Roadhouse?"
And then he went Dirty Dancing with a black dog.
It's funny you mention that because there is an Easter egg about Dirty Dancing in Point Break.
Right. See, there you go. I didn't pick up on it.
When he walks up and he sees Johnny with that great big new surfboard that he's bought, and he's like,
Looks like a 57 Chevy I used to have.
Right.
That's the car he drove in
Right.
Dirty Dancing. Apparently, I haven't seen Dirty Dancing.
Best one-liners. Now, there's not a lot of post-mortem one-liners or anything like that in this film. It's not really that kind of action film, but there are plenty of great lines regardless. Luke, what is your favourite?
I think my favourite is at the more or less at the very beginning, when Johnny has just entered he's been transferred to work in bank robbery in the FBI down in LA, and he's being introduced to all the things, and John T. McGinley's there, and he's taking him through the office, and he gets to the end, and the reason I like it is because it's like it's one of those moments where you can tell that, well, you kind of assume that this character, John C. McGinley's character, has been sitting on this insult, just waiting for it, just waiting to use it, just waiting for a few months, like George in his jerk store moment. And he says to Johnny, he's like,
what I don't know is how you got yourself assigned out here to Los Angeles with us. I guess we just must have ourselves an asshole shortage, huh?
And then Johnny Utah is just sit there and he's like,
Not so far.
Yeah.
There's something about that, I just like it.
My favourite line is actually from the same character at almost the same time as
well.
Right. It's when it's literally when they're first meeting, and he's kind of berating him from the get-go, and he's like, it's not that. I mean, I also like
Young, dumb, and full of cum.
Yeah.
Which is the T-shirt line
pretty
much from this film, but it's when he's like,
you know nothing. In fact, you know less than nothing. If you even knew that you knew nothing, that'd be something, but you don't.
and it's like this tongue twister. And Keanu Reeves is already walking around with like a permanent look of confusion on his face in this film. The last thing he needs is a riddle in the first 5 minutes. Now, of course, the best death. Again, I don't think there's that many sort of spectacular deaths, really.
Not quite.
So I found it quite hard to choose a favourite. Had that drug dealer's face actually been pushed into that lawnmower, that would have been the number one. So I don't know. How do you feel? Which one did you choose?
I came to the same conclusion. I kind of got to the end of it and was like, there wasn't really any sort of spectacular deaths. And I don't think that FBI guy who got attacked by the naked surfer floozy, I don't think he died. That would have been a really interesting way to go out for him. But there was nothing beyond that scene that sort of led me to believe that he'd actually died died during that bust. So at the end of the day, I've just gone for Bodhi. It's a little spectacular the way he gets absolutely crushed by that enormous wave. But B, but it's this really weird anticlimax to this whole journey for Bodhi, where he's like,
My whole life has been about this moment, Johnny.
and he's like begging him to let him go out and catch just one wave, and he knows he's not going to come back, but he just wants to catch one wave, man. And he goes out there, and you get that sort of slow motion scene where he's on the crest of the wave, and he gets up, and there's like literally 1 second later he's off the board, flailing down the water, and then he's dead. He doesn't get to ride the wave. He falls off instantly.
Yeah, it's quite tragic, really.
Yeah, a little bit.
Also, shout out to, I agree, I think that is probably the best death in the film, but shout out to Anthony Kiedis from the Chili Peppers, who doesn't die, but he shoots himself squarely in the Reebok pumps. And his acting career pretty much died from that point onwards. I think he showed up in an episode of The Simpsons, and that was it. So the Point Break body count now, this is going to be pretty low, but let's go to it
Fairly
anyway.
brief, yes.
Yeah, let's hit it. So 6 deaths, bad guy deaths total, assuming that Patrick Swayze's Bodhi does drown in that wave, and he doesn't, as he threatens, swim to another nation.
Cliffs on both sides. I'm not going to paddle to New Zealand.
And very few good guys killed as well. There's kind of like the police guy in the bank.
There's the off-duty cop. There's the security guard with him as well.
Gary Busey, of course.
Gary Busey, sadly.
And one naked lady knocked unconscious. Not a death. Yeah, pretty low in terms of body
Quite
count,
low,
but still high on action. Let's be honest. I also wanted to just quickly do a bra count.
Your what?
Not that kind of bra.
There's not a lot of bras.
No, but this film, it really became obvious to me the use of the word bra, as in bro, and I'd never sort of been aware of it before that, having not grown up in Southern California. And it's not really, I don't know if it's used that much since, but let's get the bra count anyway.
Count.
Hey, don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry at all.
It will sting a bit, but for your own growth, bro.
I can't do it, bro. Do something, bro.
So it's only 4 times, but it seemed to be a lot when I was watching it.
Is it because they're all like stacked really
I
close
think
to each
it
other
might
towards
be,
the
yeah.
end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a big bra down towards the end of it. So, reload or retire, or perhaps or reboot. Well, that is definitely happening.
That's
Reload
definitely
or
happening.
Retire, though, for this, the original Point Break. What do you think, Luke?
I say reload for sure. Yeah.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. I really enjoy. I mean, I've always liked this movie, and I haven't seen it for a few years, and I watched it again like 2 days ago, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I thought it was really good. I think like watching it now, and I know Keanu Reeves gets a lot of. He's a punchline to a lot of people's jokes, but I really like Keanu Reeves, and he seems like a really cool dude. I'd have him around my house in a second. I feel like
I hope he's watching.
I feel like he's the kind of guy you could bring around, and he'd wash up afterwards. That kind of guy. Although the script has some real clangers in it.
Yeah.
So I get what people talk about. Remember when he's sitting on the phone, and he's like has that real Days of Our Lives, saying your thoughts out loud moment. He's like,
Why can't I ever say what I really mean?
and also these guys they're not that great as FBI agents.
No.
They're kind of garbage.
Yeah.
Because he accidentally stumbles across Bodhi's ex-girlfriend by nearly drowning in front of her.
That's right.
And she just happens to know the guy who's been robbing all these banks.
Yep.
So that's about the gist of how he finds him.
Yeah. Don't discount the moment where they're running around the beach cutting off Surfer's hair.
Yeah.
To do the DNA analysis or whatever.
Saved your life, bro.
And Pappas is like, he's this guy who seems to be really passionate about finding the ex-presidents. And he's ridiculed by his fellow agents for his surfer theory, because they're all like, tell me theory.
Yeah.
And you'd think that like with his best lead in 3 years, he'd be a little more into the idea of catching these guys, and he's sitting in the car reading Calvin and Hobbes,
When they
eating meatball sandwiches.
when they burst in
Yeah,
the-
and like
in the
Keanu Reeves
bank.
comes back, he's like,
You said Lincoln, pull up.
and he's like, what? And also, and like, do you remember Johnny leaves his wallet in like she just finds the wallet that says, I'm an FBI agent.
That's right.
In his house. You think if you're undercover, literally the first thing you would hide is your identification
Yeah.
that identifies you as an FBI agent.
Yeah.
So these guys aren't great cops.
No.
They're not great FBI agents.
No.
And the script has a few sort of dud lines in it.
You're gonna jump or jerk off.
But no, it's just such a fun movie.
My finger was hovering over the retire button, I've got to say, purely based off not what you've just said then, but purely based off Keanu and his performance. And I'm not a Keanu hater, but in this film he's particularly bad. And in a film that's like full of surfboards, he is the most wooden thing on screen. And it's like a high school play. His character, I think.
Caught my first tube this morning, sir.
But fortunately, it doesn't ruin the film, and in fact, it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, all this awesome stuff happens around him, and I think the film, it's kind of slow to get started, but then it kind of crests and builds momentum, just like the perfect wave, brah.
Nice.
And,
Good job.
So, Luke, according to us, the Roundhousers, the connoisseurs of action here at IGN.
Yes.
Point Break, the original 1991 surf action film, still awesome after all these years. In fact, maybe it's even better now than it was before.
Yeah, I think it's aged really well.
Yeah.
I think it's totally a product of its time, but I think it's aged really well. It's still a really watchable movie.
Absolutely. With that in mind, I'm going to ask you, put you
Yes.
on the spot.
Yes.
Does the upcoming remake have any right to exist?
I'm not going to sit here and like tear apart a film that is 6 months away from release. And I'm not automatically opposed to remakes. Some of them have been great.
Yep.
True Grit was great.
Yes.
Even True Lies was kind of a remake of a French movie. Did you know that?
I didn't.
I
know
didn't
that.
either.
Do you still not know that?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Right. Okay.
But I guess what I'm cynical about is the tone of just the trailer.
Right.
Where the first Point Break, as it stands, is the Point Break we're speaking about right now. It was a way more sort of intimate story, and I don't mean it like you think I mean it.
Pull it right now! Now you pull it! Go ahead, Johnny, pull it!
Take my hand, hold on.
I mean, it's sort of a small, lo-fi sort of affair where it's just two lawmen tracking down some crooks that rob banks. They take the money in the cash drawers. They don't seem to be rolling in cash. They just get enough money to fund their endless summer, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the story. But this new Point Break, we're seeing guys like sneaking into airplanes that are in flight, and motorcycles out running rock slides, and parties on yachts, and
It's Point Break XXX.
yeah. And it just seems to me like a Point Break film. It just seems to me like a cops and robbers film built for a post Fast and Furious world. And I think that quite telling that the director of this Point Break remake is the cinematographer of the original The Fast and the Furious.
Right, so he's clearly a big Point Break fan.
Clearly
That's
a big
been
Point Break
established.
fan. But I think it just misses the point of that first Point Break. You know, just a couple of guys with a couple of shotties and a giant novelty pistol in some president's masks. Like Bodhi didn't even replace his suit after it got burnt at the petrol station. He wore the burnt suit to the next heist.
Yeah.
These
It's
guys
either that or a wetsuit.
These guys aren't big, well-funded like heisters, like in the sort of latter Fast and Furious films where they're boosting millions of dollars worth of gold and all that kind of stuff. It's worth remembering in the first Fast and Furious movie they were stealing trucks full of VCRs.
Right.
So it just seems like this film's kind of afraid to de-escalate back to something that would be more fitting with the spirit of sort of the original Point Break. It does seem like it's in sync with the cheeseball dialogue, though.
Oh, yeah?
In the trailer where he's like...
I believe that, like me, the people behind these robberies are extreme athletes.
Yep, that is a clanger worthy of the original.
So, yeah, but I don't know. It just seemed... Maybe they just really, really wanted to make a movie with a character in it called Johnny Utah, and I think remaking Point Break is the only way to do that.
Yep, it is pretty irresistible.
It's Johnny Utah.
Do you agree or disagree? Let us know. Otherwise, let us know which action film from your library that you'd like us to delve into for the next episode of the Roundhouse. Luke, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tristan.
See you next time.
Cheers, brah. And the last thing that I love about Point Break is watching films from that era and then spotting, like you just sort of spot all these little characters. Like Tom Sizemore pops up and you're like, oh, it's Tom Sizemore.
Yeah, Tom Sizemore.
It's like skinny Tom Sizemore.
Yeah, Tom Size less.
Yeah.
He's tiny. And it's like Heat was only a few years later and
yeah,
he
I know.
stacked on the...
He did, yeah.